Hey, welcome back to the booth. My name is Marshall Sutcliffe. This is Zach Hill, and we have reached the last round of the day, and really of this main first portion of the whole entire tournament here. This is going to be a critical round, as we just saw from Rich, to decide what happens on who's going to make it to the top four here.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we see an absolutely commanding performance from Yasaoka. 10-1 against the best players in the world. It's impossible not to be impressed by that.
Yeah, that is insane. Shota just coming here and wrecking this field. Really impressive. Now, it looks like for our feature match, we're going to be starting off with John Finkel versus Shuhei Nakamura. Now, you and I, you two, we've got some experience with this matchup at this point.
That's true. It's the same blue-white versus Jun matchup. You know, Finkel, Kibler playing the blue-white deck based off Su Xingquo's deck from the World Magic Cup. All of Nakamura, Yuuya, Watanabe playing the same Jun deck with 4 copies of Liliana the Veil that they thought would be very powerful for this tournament. So the thing is, with 16 players, you got a lot of people playing the same decks, so we're going to be seeing that matchup again on camera. Fortunately, a really interesting back-and-forth matchup. I mean, I called one player or the other only to see the tide completely turn.
You know, I just had a chance to talk to Brian Kibler out there in the field. I asked him, hey, what did you think about your match? That thing was crazy. And he was like, well, he said it was. He said he felt the same momentum swings that we saw from the booth. He also said he thought he misplayed a little bit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you know, like there was a cryptic command that he used to draw a card. He could have also bounced his Snapcaster Mage.
Oh, yeah?
Replay it. Do the cryptic command again, right? Like,
sure.
You can get some loops going that are very powerful. And he says, look, I'm not that used to playing Snapcaster Mages and Restoration Angels. He's like, there's still some room for me to even improve within the confines of this deck. Now, you know, I don't know how much experience John Finkel has directly playing these same cards, but the one thing that we have seen is that you never ever count this deck out. Like it.
No.
I mean, did you see Martin Yuuya after that last match? He was like, I had you.
Yeah, yeah. And I was sitting there saying like, oh, well, Kibler clearly needs to draw Wrath of God. Right, that's the only card. No, it turns out that Restoration Angel into Cryptic Command, into Snapcaster Mage, into who knows what, Path to Exile, anything you need to. I mean, again, we talked about how even though it's blue-white versus black-red-green, there's a lot of similarities between the blue-white deck and the Jun deck, in that like Angel into Snapcaster sort of feels like Cascade the way it used to be, you know, Bituminous Blast into Bloodbraid Elf into Maelstrom Pulse. You know, these threats just keep feeding upon each other.
That's right.
And it starts a chain.
Yeah, you know, now when we're talking about this matchup, I still favor the Jun deck, and here's the reason for it. They can both grind pretty effectively, right? They can both generate card advantage and momentum in that way. But the thing that I like about the Jun deck is that it has a fairly unbeatable draw, right? It can be, you know, make you discard, play a Tarmogoyf, play a Liliana or something, and just lock them out. All right, it looks like we're ready to go down. So right now, we're going to go down to the feature match area. John Finkel versus Shuhei Nakamura, round 12 of the Players' Championships. Let's do it. Welcome back to coverage of the Players' Championship here from Seattle, Washington. My name is Marshall Sutcliffe. I am joined by Zach Hill here in the booth, and we are already underway. John Finkel on the left-hand side of your screen versus Shuhei Nakamura on the right. Hollowed Fountain to start things off. He put it into play tapped.
And it's interesting you mentioned putting into play tapped. One of the nice things from the blue-white deck about being on the play is that you can afford to play turn 1 tap lands and not walk right into a Tarmogoyf for a Dark Confidant that you're unable to Spell Snare.
Right, because you're going to be able to untap, have the blue up, and Spell Snare it after. So taking a look here, it looks like Shuhei's deciding what to get with his Verdant Catacombs, but we see right at the front an Inquisition of Kozilek. And it looks like, to me, you know, Inquisition is going to be the first play, and then that's going to really kind of craft how this game goes for the rest of it for Shuhei. He actually just gets a basic Swamp. Do you think that's an interesting choice given how many Path to Exiles John Finkel has in his deck?
I do, and we brought that up before. We've seen the deck actually run out of basic lands with Path. I mean, if you don't have any in your hand, then you can assume you're not going to get Path 3 times.
Speaking
if
of
you
Path.
do, it doesn't matter. Yeah, speaking of Path, we see that. Vendilion Click and not a whole lot else. I think you've got to take Click with this Inquisition. Looks like a pretty rough mulligan for John.
So you take the Click, but if you look at his hand, he does have a Tarmogoyf. So if he lets him, if he takes the Path away, you know, he does still get to resolve and start beating down with a Tarmogoyf, right?
Yeah, that's certainly true, but I mean, you've got, I think Shuhei has a pair of Tarmogoyfs, actually. Yeah, you see 2 of them there.
So you don't mind turning one into a land?
I don't think so. I mean, the deck can always use some lands, and you're not taking any damage. You've got a lot of time. John's got to be pretty disappointed about that.
Okay. Interesting draw for John. He's got his Sword of Worn piece. It does protect him from a few of the removal spells that Shuhei's deck's going to be running, but not all of them.
Right, now, Shuhei, if he wants to, could cast another Inquisition here, but and he's looking at the Raging Ravine as to do exactly that.
Yeah, if he plays a Raging Ravine, then that's the play.
I kind of want to just get a Tarmogoyf onto the table, though, maximize my mana. Next turn, conceivably go an Inquisition into another Tarmogoyf. But, I mean, you've got to play your Raging Ravine at some point.
Wow.
Shuhei doesn't Inquisition, I guess, doesn't want to take the Path to Exile just yet. He can do it next turn before he casts Tarmogoyf.
And still use all his mana on that turn.
Exactly.
Interesting. I like this line. Because it also gives you another shot at taking something good from John. And, you know, for example, John's in a weird position here because he can play a land, but if he wants to resolve this sword, he needs to play it right now because otherwise he risks getting an Inquisition. Now, if he doesn't care about that, then so be it. He can make that choice.
Yeah, that's certainly an awkward aspect of not casting Inquisition is you don't give yourself that option.
Right.
And John looking like he's just going to cast the sword. And, you know, with as many flash creatures as he has in his deck, Shuhei's got to really respect that threat.
Right.
Shuhei now casting Inquisition to take the Path to Exile, sees Cryptic Command, going to cast a Tarmogoyf, have a very commanding board presence. John still without a threat to go along with that sword. We see Shuhei does exactly what we said, takes the Path. Going to play that Black Cleave Cliffs, 3rd land, so it comes into play untapped right in time for the Tarmogoyf.
So it's a 4/5 right now. The Tarmogoyf is sorcery instant land creature.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's what the players confirm. Now, the Spell Snare right now, pretty good for John. It's going to take out the 2nd Tarmogoyf if that's what Shuhei casts. The only other option I can see, Shuhei wanted to get Liliana on the board. Oh.
Does he have a land so that, yes, he does.
Yeah, okay, and all of that I just said goes out the window with a devastating Bloodbraid Elf.
So Cascade first, Maelstrom Pulse right off the top.
Goodness,
it's going to hit the sword, so John has to decide, you know, how important is that sword to him right now?
Right, I mean, yeah, he can Cryptic Command the Pulse, which, you know, certainly does something, but he's going to be taking a lot of damage if he does that. Shuhei also, if John casts Cryptic Command, knows that John doesn't have a Restoration Angel and doesn't have to worry about whether the Angel is going to take out his Bloodbraid Elf.
And remember, the Bloodbraid Elf is currently on the stack as well, so, you know, it can't get tapped from a Cryptic Command or anything like that to save this big chunk of damage that's going to be coming at Finkel. Not unless he lets the Maelstrom Pulse resolve.
Right. Bloodbraid Elf in the Maelstrom Pulse, so play that defined standard for a long time. John Cryptic Commanding the Bloodbraid Elf, drawing a card, saying, okay, the sword's not doing a whole lot. I need to not take 7 points of damage right now. 8 points of damage.
Yeah, so there's an artifact in the yard now as well, making it 5.
Right, so yeah, Tarmogoyf gets in. That sorcery, creature, land, artifact, and instant. John with the Celestial Colonnade, but not a whole lot else.
He's got 2 cards in his hand. We know one of them's a Spell Snare. I don't know the other.
You know, Shuhei gonna play this land, I guess, to cast both Liliana and Tarmogoyf. Playing it untapped.
It's gonna drop him to 17 life. Still pretty healthy here.
Yeah, especially with no threats on John's side.
Liliana of the Veil, man. John is really hoping he has that mana leak, but apparently he doesn't, as he's still thinking maybe a second Cryptic Command. couldn't quite get a. There's a spell snare and a Vendilion click.
So something he could do is click in response to Liliana, but then he just gets edicted by the Liliana.
That's right.
Discarding click, not really good, but he doesn't want to discard spell snare either, as that clears the way for Shuhei's Tarmogoyf.
Man, Shuhei is just... Okay, so he says, plus Liliana, we're both discarding, and John says, in response, I will Vendilion click. He's going to get rid of this thing. I guess he can hit a path here.
That is true.
He drew another one, and he discards it.
All right, and Shuhei gets rid of spell snare
and plays the second Tarmogoyf, and wow, things are looking very, very good for Shuhei Nakamura here in the first game.
Right, I think John's wishing his deck could afford to cast not Path to Exile, Maelstrom Pulse right now.
Yep.
It can't, and John packs his cards up.
John says, I've had enough.
Yeah.
So that was, to me, a very well played but very typical Jund feel when you lose to it, in that it just grinds you down piece by piece, takes away the key stuff out of your hand, and eventually just kills you.
Yeah, Jund, not a deck you want to mulligan against. Like you were saying, Marshall, that was sort of why you said you favored the Jund deck in this matchup. It's able to just strip your threat away, strip whatever it cares about away, play with perfect information, and really put you on a very aggressive clock while it's doing that.
Right. And, you know, especially when you're talking about high-level play like this, that perfect information goes a long way.
Right. That's, in fact, one of the reasons that Shuhei decided to play the deck.
The Magic Feather case by Incipio lets your imagination flow. Keep your iPhone 4 or iPhone 4S protected from danger while showcasing Magic's awesome imagery, including the most popular planeswalkers and other amazing art. For more information, visit wizards.com/magicmerchandise.
Now, Shuhei and Finkel both sideboarding right now. We've seen Shuhei's team bring in Nile Spellbomb in this matchup more than once. Other cards, Olivia Voldarin, Seal of Primordium, one copy, Batterskull, also another card coming in. I don't know that I like the Spellbomb. It turns off Snapcaster Mage and Kitchen Finks, but it's not a threat. It's not really a plan. You only have one copy, and it's not proactive. I think getting behind on tempo, very bad in a matchup like this, given the evasion from the blue-white deck and its capacity to stabilize.
Now, the good news, if you do bring that card in, is that it's fairly low impact on your deck. It essentially cycles for 2 mana, and you can usually find a spot to do that at an opportune time.
And it's sort of fascinating to me. You're bringing it in and taking out Jund Charm, giving out one of the modes of Jund Charm, is to be able to hit the graveyard at instant speed.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, I guess with Cryptic Command in the format, you don't just want to bounce your guys. Finkel now bringing in Phantasmal Image, 2 Threads of Disloyalty, a Vendilion Click, and is that a Baneslayer Angel?
Baneslayer Angel seems not unreasonable, although I have to say that Shuhei's deck does have a lot of ways to kill it.
Yeah, it certainly bites the dust to removal spells, but
it's also a fantastic cleanup spell, right? Like the last thing you cast.
Right, yeah. There's a Kitchen Finks. No Phantasmal Image from John. Taking out Geist to Saint Draft Sword of War and Peace. Geist just sort of gets blocked. Doesn't really help you come back from behind. And Shuhei has 4 Liliana the Veil, so the hexproof less relevant than it might be otherwise.
Yeah, you know, when you see Kitchen Finks on the other side of the board, that makes Geist of Saint Draft pretty tough.
Right.
Although, you know, Path to Exile does do a lot.
Sure,
to help stem that bleeding.
Yeah, I think the Shuhei's plans largely just overload Finkel with Path to Exile targets. And that does, you know, if you can get one out with Nile Spellbomb, it does mean that you're sort of putting a cap on the amount of times John can cast that spell.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because, you know, we've seen people try to take that strategy and just have the blue-white deck say, well, I'm just going to cast Path to Exile 6 times this game, you know? Like, sure.
Right.
You're going to, you know, it in a lot of ways does kind of play into its strategy. I mean, Snapcaster maging back a Path to Exile is one of the most cleanest, efficient ways to get value out of the Snapcaster.
Right. I don't know that I like these Seals of Primor. Oh, we see Obstinate Baloth coming in for Shuhei, presumably just for the tempo swing. I'm not a big fan of the Seal of Primordiums that he was thinking about bringing in. Wow, sides out of Liliana the Veil, maybe because he knows Geist of Saint Traft isn't going to be in the main deck. He doesn't want to get stranded with multiples. Also, Liliana get threatened by the flash creatures from the blue-white deck. I like going down to 3 of those. I don't like bringing in Seal of Primordium when you have 2 Maelstrom Pulse, and Sword of War and Peace not even that good in this mashup.
Right, it just doesn't seem that amazing. I mean, it turns off Terminate.
Yeah,
you know, Lightning Bolt, but
it's just, it doesn't turn off Maelstrom Pulse, doesn't turn off Liliana, and mainly, you're betting on having a creature in play. If you're the blue-white deck and you have a creature in play that's active against the Jund deck, you're probably in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good way to put it, I think, Zach, because it seems pretty unlikely. Like a Snapcaster Mage feels like it's never going to be able to just outright attack profitably unless things go very, very well in your direction. And yeah, like you said, if you've got a 3-1 or a 3-4 flyer in the air, that those do quite a bit of work themselves.
I guess Seal of Primordium can disenchant Threads of Disloyalty, which is, you know, a potent weapon out of the blue-white deck, but there's only 2 copies of that. I just don't like reactive cards in matchup as tempo-intensive as this one.
I believe that Brian Kibler's up a game against Yuuya Watanabe on one of the side tables here.
Calling Brian Kibler, and John Finkel. Very important metagame technology in the environment of color commentary. It's interesting, you know, you've got to think that at least some of the reason that Jund Charm and Pyroclasm are in the decks is to combat Geist of Saint Traft, and they're in the sideboard, so sometimes you might bring them in against Geist of Saint Traft. But a unique factor of this tournament is that these players have played each other and seen each other play. It's possible that Shuhei just knows that John and Brian both side out Geist of Saint Traft in this matchup based on what they've done in earlier rounds. So there's kind of a metagame within the metagame, as it were, as you try to optimize your deck based on the decisions you know your opponent's going to make.
And that's a sweet dynamic that we have here that isn't necessarily true at other tournaments. You know, there's a lot of knowledge about deck lists floating around both in the limited and the constructed portions, and so, you know, figuring out whether to zig when they're zagging is going to be a pretty important thing. And I think it's something that I think that aspect of the game favors John Finkel. I just think he's really good at intuitively kind of figuring out, ooh, that was a Baneslayer, by the way.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that about John. Now, this hand from John, he keeps it kind of awkward. No,
it is.
No
he doesn't have a
for the
path.
Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, no target for the Snapcaster. If he had a Path Exile, I'd feel pretty strong like this is a fine hand, but...
And I guess part of him thinks, okay, well, I'll just draw an instant at some point in the game.
And that's fair.
All right, we see a Hallowed Fountain from John, a Raging Ravine from Shuhei. Not really fast starts by either player.
No, and no instant, no hand disruption right away from Shuhei. I see he's got a Bob and a Goyf in there. You know, he's probably a little bit shy about just running a 2-drop out there. He's probably going to play the one that he would like to resolve least first.
Right. And the thing about John's hand right now is he can just let it resolve and take it with Threads of Disloyalty. And like if Shuhei resolves Dark Confidant, he's going to be excited for a split second and then terrified.
He is just going to get buried by his own Bob.
And he's looking at that right now. I mean, just that's why Threads of Disloyalty is a powerful card.
Right.
You know? And he plays a Tarmogoyf. If it gets stolen, it's only an 0-1 at present, so...
Right. He did say he's going to get a swamp.
Gets a basic swamp with Verdant Catacombs, leaving a couple more in the deck for Path to Exile. Doesn't want to take 2 damage for no reason. John drawing an Arid Mesa. He's going to, plays a Plains. He's got to slam the Threads very quickly. I mean, you can't be disappointed to be able to have a Tarmogoyf. I mean,
it will grow.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to get bigger, and really we've seen a lot of the players bend over very far backwards to play around Threads. So whenever the plan actually works, you're probably not too sad. That said, I think you'd rather have a Dark Confidant than a Squire at this point in time. Squire attacks.
1-2 gets in there. I guess he could have traded. All right, Bob Trigger. He's going to take 3 damage, but that's a pretty nice one.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, you know, if it gets edicted, not the end of the world for John. He traded Thresidus Loyalty for Liliana activation, but big Bloodbraid Elf from Shuhei.
So now this is a key one, because if this Bloodbraid Elf finds removal, that doesn't work. All right, so it's a Thoughtseize, which seems fine here.
Yeah, it seems great here.
Yeah. So Thoughtseize on the stack. Does John Finkel have a response currently? It looks like he's just going to lay down his hand and let it happen here, because he's got a Baneslayer Angel and a couple of Snapcaster Mages to go with lands. And Shuhei instantly takes the Baneslayer, so he does not have an answer to that in his hand. And I think that John Finkel is very aware that, with the speed at which he did that, he's not holding a Terminate.
No. And I mean, and the other thing is, John basically has 2 bad Ambush Vipers in his hand right now.
Non-Death Touch Ambush Viper, go.
Right, Shuhei probably not going to attack with Dark Confidant, which is relevant. Not going to trade a 3-2 for a 2-1 either.
Would you have traded there?
Probably.
I think I would have as well. Yeah, sure, those Snapcasters aren't good right now, but they're going to be good this game at some point.
Right, they're not in the deck to be Ambush Viper.
Right, if I can turn his Snapcaster Mage just into a Doomblade, I'm pretty happy about that.
Right, into a Doomblade for my creature that's already gained me card advantage. Yeah, right. I think I want to. I think I'd attack with the Bloodbraid, unless you want to keep it back to block Tarmogoyf, but...
All right, John's just going to run one out there. He wants to have a board presence here and prevent future attacks, apparently.
Well, and if John's saying, okay, you're not going to trade Bloodbraid Elf for my Snapcaster Mage, you're not going to trade it for it on the attack either.
Right.
So maybe he's looking to get aggressive.
He is indeed. Double block. So it's creature, land, sorcery. It's a 3-4.
So you're just willing.
Wow.
I guess Shuhei is all in on the Batter Skull right now. I don't really understand that play very much. I guess Shuhei being at 11 life due to Thoughtseize and Dark Confidant means he's got to preserve his life total more than he would otherwise.
This Jund deck can really put a wreck on its own life total with those Thoughtseizes and enter the battlefield the shock lands.
Yeah. Now we see another Bloodbraid Elf from Shuhei, but he can't cast it because his 4th land enters the battlefield tapped. That's going to get Snap Spell Snared by John.
Yep.
Tectonic Edge, one of the most important cards out of the blue-white deck. We've seen it do some valuable work today.
It really has. Hey, speaking of Tectonic Edge.
All right, and Shuhei at a fairly precarious life total if John chooses to activate. And that's exactly what we're going to see.
Wow. Takes away his second black source here. He does leave him with 2 man lands, but there's a Seal of Primordium a little late.
Right, so Shuhei can't cast Bloodbraid Elf, can't cast Obstinate Baloth, can't cast Liliana. Grip full of cards, none of them do anything. Tectonic Edge might just win this game.
It might. There's a Path to Exile for John Finkel, but he can't attack right now, right? Doesn't he just activate Treetop Village and block?
Yeah, John's got the path.
Yeah, now he's got the path, so he can, but I'm just saying, as far as the board state sits from Shuhei's perspective, he's just planning on blocking.
Right. It's not as though Shuhei can't block.
Right.
He doesn't want to fall to 5 and just be within attack range if John does basically anything at all.
Right. Restoration Angel, etc.
Right.
We know he doesn't have that. He's got Path and Snapcaster, but he can get rid of threats.
Yeah, John
decides
just
not
passes.
to do that.
Okay.
Okay. He does draw a much-needed land. Unfortunately, it also enters the battlefield tab. Jun's lands tend to do that. What is this? That is another land, a Hallowed Fountain. So not a Cryptic Command or some, blowout spell there.
Right. Snapcaster Mage, just not that many targets until he casts that first path.
Yeah. So do you just force Shuhei to do that, or he does get in the damage if he does it that way, right?
I think so, because I think you want a 2-1 on the table right now.
Yeah.
I liked what you were talking about doing it last turn. Also, you're going to have to deal with Treetop Village eventually. So why not, do it while you're not going to do anything else with your mana? Also, if Shuhei needs to draw lands, him thinning a deck out with Path to Exile makes it that much less likely that he's going to draw a land next turn. So
right.
I kind of like attacking here.
Because things are going to get pretty nasty for Finkel if Shuhei gets to untap and start casting Bloodbraids and Lilianas and all this crazy stuff.
Right. Also, Obstinate Baloth right now, just hugely valuable. The 4 points is a lot.
Activate. Path to Exile. Sure.
All right. So
now, this is actually very interesting, because if he has another swamp, then it actually does open up him being able to cast the Liliana that's in his hand where he couldn't before.
That's true.
Now,
and
he
that's
does.
exactly what he gets.
Interesting. So now he can cast everything in his hand, including Blood Braids, Obstinate Baloths, the whole lot of it.
Really, a unique feature of Modern is to see 2 Swamps and 2 Raging Ravine.
Yeah, that is not common. I believe Shuhei's at 5 now. So the Snapcaster Mage, oh, he just goes right to write things down because he knows he doesn't have it, and he's drawn an extra land here too. So Shuhei is mounting a comeback, although that thing is going to get Path to Exile, but he's back at 9 now.
Yeah, he's at 9. He's going to fall to 5 on the attack, but Finkel needs to really top deck something powerful. Restoration Angel would be very good right here. You know, just anything, because Shuhei is going to cast Bloodbraid Elf, and it's going to get him right back in the game.
Was that a spell snare?
That was.
Yeah, so that's not going to do a whole lot potentially. Now, whatever gets cascaded into, maybe spell snareable, who knows?
Good.
Right, Batterskull also from Shuhei can be just devastating.
Oh yeah, he
right
could just slam a Batterskull as well, couldn't he?
Now, I think you might even want to do that with your opponent only having 1 card. On the other end, if he did top deck Cryptic Command, you're going to fall all the way to 1. So Bloodbraid Elf guarantees something resolves, but at the end of the day, Batterskull just so devastating that, you know, he says, okay, Kibler or Finkel, if you got something, show it to me.
Yep. And he's also going to play the Seal of Primordium. Now, that could get countered here, right?
That could get spell snared,
I'm pretty sure that's what Finkel has. Now, just does he care?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
You don't have any swords. You've already used one of your 2 threads of disloyalties. Finkel just says, okay, that's nice.
And he rips a Tectonic Edge, which, you know, he's already used 2 of them this game. The third one would be fine, but it looks like Shuhei's assembled a pretty competent mana base here. And while it will take out a man land, which is not irrelevant, it's also not necessarily a way to beat Shuhei. Was that a terminate?
Yes, that is a terminate, and Finkel wisely deciding to preserve his spell snare for something more important than a Seal of Primordium.
Like a terminate. So would you Bloodbraid here?
Yeah. I think you want to start attacking.
Oh, he's just going to let it trade.
I guess he didn't, but I'm very willing to trade a Germ for 2 Snapcaster Mages and 4 life.
Yeah, that is a fair trade if you're in Shuhei's seat.
Is this a post-combat Bloodbraid Elf?
That's a little awkward, but there it is. Okay, so Cascade. No. Cascade into Terminate. You can decide if you don't want to cast the Cascade spell, and he does not.
So why do you think he cast that post-combat? Just didn't want to walk into Cryptic or Restoration Angel?
I mean, if he walks into Cryptic, then he can bounce the Germ, and he doesn't get in there.
Yeah, I get the cautious play.
Yeah.
I mean, Shuei's in such a commanding board position right now that you just want to make sure very few things go wrong. And like, all right, you missed 3 points of damage. John's at 19. This game's going to be about attrition, not a race anyway from Shuei's side.
The thing is, Shuhei's a much more patient player than I am. So I'm just trying to learn by watching him right now as opposed to figure out what he's doing.
Yeah.
Liliana of the Veil. Couldn't get mana leaked here. It doesn't really do anything.
I don't really understand tapping Treetop Village. I mean, I know your plan is going to be to pick Batterskull back up, but I mean, at least represent that you can attack with Treetop Village, right? You know, if you leave it open instead of the second Raging Ravine.
All right, John draws a Threads of Disloyalty. That can hit the Germ?
It certainly can. Yeah, the Germ's converted mana cost is 0. So.
And so he can take it, and it will take the Batterskull with it, although Shuhei will still control the Batterskull and can re-equip it at will. But that's a lot of mana.
Yeah, it is.
And he's just going to pitch
it. It got discarded. It's just like even more awkward with Shuhei's 1 of Seal of Primordium on the battlefield.
That's right.
All right, I think we're going to see a Batterskull equip right now.
We do indeed. And an attack. That's going to be a 7-point life swing. It's going to bring John Finkel to 9. Shuhei's going to be back up to 16. They basically just swap life totals here.
John has a Vendilion click. Probably going to use it on himself, targeting Mana Leak. Try and draw a Path to Exile. But Shuhei's Batterskull can just keep making germs.
Yeah.
So.
This is a really tough spot. You know, and this is one of the things where I think that he is going to just discard.
Right. He doesn't. Right. He can't do that because of Liliana. Although he could have done it in the main phase.
23. Go. End the turn.
target you. And he says, terminate it with the ability on the stack. And is that a Kitchen Finks? Sure is. Although Liliana is at 6, she's set to ultimate if that's what he wants to do. He would gain some life.
And lose all of his land.
He would lose.
Oh, no, that's right, because you can sack him and just get it back. Yeah, okay.
He says, sure, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, this does put Shuhei in a position where he can ultimate Liliana and put Kitchen Finks in one pile and everything else in the other.
Well, if he does that, John, right, he can just get the Kitchen Finks back, right, because it's sacrifice.
Yeah, but then he has to take that pile.
No, he lets his Finks die. Right?
Oh, I see. Oh, he just takes everything and then he gets the Finks back. Yeah, right, totally right. Sorry about that.
No, but still, I mean, you know, the Liliana ultimate gonna do some work.
It's still threatening here, although the Kitchen Finks did buy John Finkel another turn. It's hard to imagine what he could draw here to get out of it.
And yeah, opting not to ultimate Liliana, just ticking it up again, having a ton of cruel edicts in store, and just not a lot John's deck can produce right now.
I think John might have a Restoration Angel, but I don't know that it matters. That Batterskull is doing serious work here.
All right, and yeah, Shuhei is just like, okay, show me what you got. And each player is going to discard. Sure. All right, well, being able to reset Finks is pretty powerful here.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, and that actually happens. So it's going to lose a counter, it's going to be bigger, and he's going to gain 2 life.
Oh, no, 2, then sacrifice.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, he's not taking it up.
He edicted. Okay.
Right. So that's why John's still casting the Restoration Angel in response so that he can reset his Finks and not lose a creature.
Yep.
And Shuhei says, that's nice. I am at 30. I have a giant creature.
Yeah, and more than that, he has inevitability with that Batterskull. He can just buy it back and recast it indefinitely if he needs to. He's also got, I believe, a Raging Ravine plus a Treetop Village.
Right.
So. 7, go to 3.
John does not have.
John's going to drop down to 3 life here.
Now, why is Shuhei? Oh, he's not attacking with the Raging Ravine because he doesn't have a second red source. I couldn't understand that.
Truth.
So Liliana falls back down to 3. Shuhei does not appear to be overly concerned. So falling back down to 2, yeah.
Good.
And Treetop Village has not been attacking because of the Restoration Angel. So
there's another Treetop Village, by the way.
The abyss keeps on ticking as Bloodbraid Elf gets in the red zone.
Yeah.
We're gonna tick up with Liliana first. Maybe. Oh no, we're gonna see an edict.
Oh, edict! Oh, another angel.
2.
Blink this. Sacrifice it.
7.
So he gains 4 life off that exchange. I think he's at 7.
All right, and so, okay, he does have a second red source. I was not aware of that.
So he's a 4/4.
Yep.
And he's
is that a black leaf cliff?
Must be.
Nakamura.
Does he trample or anything, or he's just 4/4?
Just 4/4.
I don't think Finkel's at 10. I think he's actually, yeah, there he is. He's at 7.
I'm at 7?
Mm-hmm.
He says it's black him, then all right.
Finally, that Kitchen Finks hits the bin.
Yeah, that thing.
40.
Did I not do one less than 44? Sure.
Yep.
I mean, Finkel doing a lot to stay alive right now, but you know, there's only so much you can do against a Bloodbraid Elf equipped with the Batterskull.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some fortunate draws to not be dead yet, but Shuhei is at 44. He's got a very, very long road to climb, and I think that, you know, Finkel's deck is more set up to generate incremental advantage as opposed to just huge game-breaking plays. I mean, Baneslayer Angel?
Right. Yeah, I mean, Baneslayer would certainly help out right now, but largely, Finkel just doesn't have enough size to deal with the Raging Ravine that keeps getting bigger and the gargantuan Bloodbraid Elf.
So he double blocks.
He does not attack with Raging Ravine. Just didn't want to walk anything. I guess Shuhei says, okay, well, if I can just keep Batterskulling, keep casting cards, then what is he going to do to me? I mean, 3 to 51, you have to think if you're Shuhei, you're not in bad shape, and you can just re-equip the Batterskull.
I mean, he's still here, you know, like his draws have been very relevant. You know, if the next one's like a Snapcaster Mage, then, you know, he has a chance to eventually stabilize. I think the big issue here long term, besides the Batterskull, are the 2 treetop villages as well. It just means he's got to have so many answers. He's already sitting at 3. He's going to activate and attack with both of these. So do you just, which one do you path here? They both stick around. They're both very annoying.
Yeah, I guess you just can't take another hit from the Batterskull.
He's 5, right?
Yep.
You're
take
at 3.
Yeah.
4 damage in latest turn.
Okay, Finkel not appreciating
7
what his life
to
total is.
3.
Did I?
Yes.
Yeah. You.
No, because you attacked with him like a few turns ago. It was a long time ago when you attacked with him.
Yeah. Few turns ago, so you choose just to block this one, and you pass to this one.
I think you hit with him once for 4 a while ago. Can we confirm? I think that was like 4 turns ago.
Yeah, no, that is what happened.
Yeah.
But that took him
Well, I
from
gained
7
4
to 3.
life when with my kitchen finks, my rest angeled it, and then came back.
Did you go from 3 to 7 then, and then 7 back down to 3?
I don't, because I think you hit me with him once for 4.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Like a while ago, but then if you attacked again, that would have 5 counters on it. Like last turn, he just declared an attack.
Attacked with it once, but
All right, judges are taking a look here. A couple of the players are hanging around as well.
In 2 or 3 turns ago.
yes.
Yeah, no, definitely attacked 2 or 3 turns ago.
Question is why? What do you think you're supposed to be at?
I thought it was at 7. Let's see here.
Yeah, let's.
I mean, I don't know. Or do they
that
have?
looks like 7 down to 3
line 'em up.
there.
Okay, we
and
see
then-
Well, no, they just moved the
there.
7 over. Let me see.
Works at Wizards of the Coast. Former judge.
Right. The thing that's
I
challenging
mean, I'm gonna
here
lose this game
is
anyway,
that,
no matter what happens.
Finkel was gaining life in increments of 4.
Yes.
And losing life in increments of 4. So one shift either way would cause the disruption that we're
Yeah,
seeing.
we have it as 3.
No, this is nothing. I just has the Liliana wrote down. I just moved this 7 from there to there. I mean, don't we have this on camera? I mean, like, can't we just see what happened?
I mean, we can.
John asking for a video replay.
Yeah, this is something that's actually technically quite difficult to
I think
do.
I'm 0% to win this game, no matter what happens.
It has been done in the past, but it's not something that is very technically feasible, and it's certainly not within the rules to do that. You know, it's not accepted as something that you should do. if
I'm
you
gonna-
qualify
I mean-
it, so.
I'm gonna lose no matter what happens anyway.
I thought it was 3. I remember when you announced that Finkel went down to 3. I saw that the
We see
range
Rashad
ravine
Miller.
did not attack. It was untapped and
No, that
all
was the
of
next.
your land.
That was the next turn.
It was
Or
the
the
same
previous
turn. It was
turn,
like he announced you going from 7 to 3.
Okay.
And then I looked and I didn't see the Raven Ravine being activated or tapped.
No, but it certainly was not. It only attacked the once.
Yeah.
But I was
Then the
confused.
turn after that it skipped.
But the turn that he was at 7 with the 3, I was confused why he took 4 damage. I didn't see anything. that
Okay,
did.
so you think it's in fact
Yeah.
7?
I didn't see any reason why he took 4 damage, and I was a little bit confused.
Okay, so it looks.
Floor reporter
it looks like
Rashad
the
Miller's
confusion
giving
was
his
over
account.
this not actually attacking last turn.
We agreed. We both agreed to attack last turn. He just thinks when it attacked the first time, I didn't take any damage from it. And
See, he has you
They're
going
taking a look at the
11,
life total
9,
slips. This is
7,
one of the reasons why we write down our life totals, is that there's a written record.
Right, and it's
this is like the
challenging because
biggest waste
Shuhei's
for a
account
game. It's
agrees
like
with
99.9%
our numbers at the very
of
least.
us.
Why we ask people to announce life totals verbally.
Toby reiterating the fact that,
Yeah, you gained
life total should be announced.
like
verbally.
kitchen finks twice, 6 up to 10.
Yeah, that went up to 10.
You take 7 down to 3.
3. Yeah.
I played really another effect to
I think Shuhei has a
-2.
pretty good grip
Yes,
on
and then
what's
he
going on. He
restoration
explained
angel
it.
response.
gain
Gains
7.
7.
Yep.
And so where does the 4 come? Where does
And-
the 4 damage come from?
Yeah. Afterwards, I activated this one and attack to 2 creatures, triggered 1 counter on the.
Was that turn? Or was that turn earlier?
I think
I mean, I feel like we should just look. I mean, I feel like nobody has any idea what's going on. I mean, I'm gonna lose the game, no matter what anyway. But let's just.
You hear John giving
I mean,
us his
it's just
commentary.
like let's.
See what controversies
Yeah. Dude, like I mean, this.
that I'm saying.
Yeah. No, of course.
You hear John giving his commentary on what
I've managed to draw all the cards to make my demise even slower. I'm like, can I find another way for me to lose even more slowly?
You hear him, you know, he's a man who thinks in numbers, and he thinks it's a 99% loss.
And John's sort of saying what we were. You know, he's trying to dig himself out of a hole.
But he doesn't have that big punch spell to get him out of it.
Well, right. It's just what is he digging?
I'll tell you what. If I'm at 3, you win. Okay. We'll play it out as if I'm at 7 because you're gonna win like 2 turns anyway. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So the players have agreed that if he actually was at 3, then he's going to say that.
I've agreed.
That
if it turns out I'm at 7, he wins. I lose the game. It's totally fine. And then.
But if the review shows that he's at 3.
Yeah.
If the review shows that he's at 3, John says, you've won.
What?
So he's basically just trying to play the game so as to avoid sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, because he knows that we have the cameras on and that you and I are, looking at it, trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen from this point on. But I think it's a reasonable conclusion that if they are able to determine for sure that the life total was 3, he says, look, I'll have lost the game at that point. But if it's not, they're playing for a lot of money and a lot of prizes, and it's definitely worth it to play it out.
I don't even know if there's a card.
Sometimes you have that 1% miracle, right? He said 99%. You got to play for it. There's no downside.
Well, there's so much on the line that you can't just, allow yourself to be blown out when you don't actually agree with what the discrepancy is and when no one's resolved it.
3 man lands, a batter skull. I have a land in my hand. I have Restoration Angel.
It's got to feel really bad for John, too, because, he knows that the writing's on the wall.
Like the small little bit of me on principle that didn't refuse.
He's talking about what we were just saying.
Can we just play as if I'm at 7?
All right, it looks like we have something resembling a solution.
We're going to move from that match. We'll figure it out.
Can we just play as if I'm at 7, and then if it turns out it's a 3, he wins. There's no card I can draw. I just don't want If it turns out I'm a 3, then he wins. That's totally fine. I'm going to untap and draw and concede unless there's a card I don't know exists.
Is it okay with you?
Yeah.
He says, yes, that's okay. And so one of the things that we want to make sure to note here is that when we're talking about the Players' Championship and all that.
I thought you were at 3. But
I don't know.
Oh, so the game's over.
I'm not sure.
Right.
I mean, they didn't actually determine that 100%, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, John said basically okay, if I'm at 3, I'm dead. If I'm at 7, I need to draw my card, see if it's something that can get me out of this, and if not, I'm dead. So Tobiel was just like, fine. Okay,
yeah, and that was I think that John is very aware. He's played probably in more feature matches than anybody has, and he knows we're all watching. We all want to see what happens, and he went ahead and did that. Looks like we're moving over to Brian Kibler versus Yuuya Watanabe.
Are you guys good? Yeah.
Players are ready, and we are ready to talk about their magical match here. I see an opening land of Seachrome goes for Kibler. Like you mentioned in the last game, not super relevant in the sense that there's very few things that he would actually path to exile here, and there's nothing that he can spell snare.
Right. He also has a Dismember, which I actually think is very, very valuable against the Jund deck, getting rid of early Tarmogoyfs and Dark Confidants without having to give your opponent a land to start Bloodbraid Elfing you early.
That's a good point.
Unless I didn't see it correctly, which has certainly been known to happen. All right, we see a end step Verdant Catacombs getting stomping ground for Watanabe. Kibler passes his deck back. Watanabe draws, and it's not anything he can cast on the second turn of the game.
Nope.
Scalding Target from Kibler. It looks like this game not going to be one of the blazing fast games of the series.
No, and we've seen this matchup before. Kibler is up a game in this one, but this is post-board, and this is where a lot of the jockeying has taken place as far as, are you going to keep this in? Do I need that answer? And expectations on what's going to come in and out. If you feel very strongly that your opponent is going to bring in something to destroy something specific in your deck, you take those things out and just blank those cards, you can get a big advantage. But you have to have a pretty big confidence that that's going to happen. I see a Kitchen Finks for Kibler. Also see a Path to Exile, a Mana Leak, a Vendilion Click.
And Kibler just passing the turn again. He's got Mana Leak open. He doesn't want to get hit too hard with anything. So it's just not leaving himself vulnerable. Probably going to cast Vendilion Click at the end of the turn if Yuuya doesn't do anything.
Is this going to be a Bloodbraid Elf? You just run it out there. I mean, Blood Red Elf, one of the cool things about it is that, like, you don't care as much if it gets countered. The downside is that if you hit something here that, like, kills a creature, you feel kind of sad.
Right.
Ooh, but he hits an Inquisition.
Extremely good card to hit right now. And you're exactly right, Marshall. I mean, Blood Red Elf, one of its strengths in the deck is its resilience to counter magic.
Gives you the freedom to just run it out there. You got to love that.
Right. Now, Kibler trying to decide if he wants to do anything in response to that Inquisition. I have to imagine he wants to cast Vendilion Click here so he can at least race the Bloodbraid Elf and get some information as to Yuuya's hand.
Now, do you think he would be racing or blocking?
I think you want to race.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't have a good argument. It just is kind of the way it feels.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think that a lot of Magic is played that way. You know, we're in the luxury of the booth, and you listeners and viewers at home get a chance to just see everything here. But when you're at the table, a lot of it is on based on experience, usually intuition or feel. All right, so he does go ahead and flash in the Vendilion Click. He gets a look at an Obstinate Baloth. What is the card on the bottom? Is that another Bloodbraid Elf? It is another Bloodbraid Elf.
Yeah.
There's also a Bob and a Maelstrom Pulse. He bins the other Bloodbraid Elf. That's kind of like taking a Snapcaster from Kibler's deck.
That's exactly right. Now that you know your opponent has Obstinate Baloth, it might be correct to block here. Just because, like, okay, well, now it's extraordinarily hard to win the race.
Right.
But some of that depends on what he takes, because if he takes your, you know, if he doesn't take your mana leak, then you can leak the Baloth and use those spells proactively. I mean, it's just so mind-blowing to think about what is going on here, because, you know, all these cards interact in very specific ways. Spellstare gets rid of Dark Confidant, doesn't do a lot else.
Right.
But Yuuya has Dark Confidant.
Right, as it turns out.
You know, Path to Exile is one of the best cards in the matchup, but it's also one of the least expensive cards in terms of mana cost, so you're getting less value for your Inquisition than you would otherwise. I don't know what to do here.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think you take Kitchen Finks, but
all right. So you take Kitchen Finks, and this is interesting because at this point in the game, actually both players have perfect information, right? One was clicked the other, and the other one was Inquisition. So, you know, they actually know everything that could go on, at least for the next turn or two. Once a few draw steps enter, it changes everything.
Magic is hard.
Magic is a very difficult game. These people have big brains, thankfully.
They do have large brains.
All right, he does take it. That's really interesting.
Right.
So his plan must be to mana leak and keep that up
That's
indefinitely.
the thing. When you can count on mana leaking the Obstinate Baloth, suddenly getting into a race is a much more realistic proposition. You want
given the fact that he has a path.
Given the fact he has a path, right, exactly. And like, you want to deplete your opponent's life total, makes his Dark Confidants and Thought Seizes much, much worse.
Also, Kibler just drew Threads of Disloyalty. So, yeah, you know what? I think that Dark Confidant resolves. Oh, man, but he has top deck another one. Start cascading. Let's see what he hits. A Terminate.
Wow.
That is going to change the race significantly. Now, that is very
hit
likely. That's going to get Spell Snare, and that's actually kind of nice for Kibler.
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden, Yuuya's going to be like, sweet, I get to land a Bob. This is going to be
right.
awesome.
Oh, the path's clear for my Dark Confidant. No, that's true.
And also, you see Kibler take a little bit of time doing it. Now, interestingly, though, again, there's so many layers here. If that does happen, Yuuya says, okay, Bob, go. And then eventually Kibler ends up stealing it. Yuuya also has that Maelstrom Pulse still, so now he can spend some of his time coming back the other direction to take it right back.
All right, now he's thinking about what he wants to do to the Bloodbraid Elf. I don't think he wants to take 6 and go to 9. I think he's trying to decide whether to use the Mana Leak that could be used on the Obstinate Baloth, or to use a Path to Exile here, or Dismember conceivably. I mean, but I don't think taking 6 is really part of your plan, because all you can do is crack back with the Vendilion Click for 3. You don't really want to have your Vendilion Click on defense.
Yeah, Kibler falls to 10, and then Yuuya Watanabe would be at 13, and Kibler would be facing down 6 more the next turn. So,
right.
Yeah.
And with Dismember in your hand, you just can't lose that much life.
Right. Because it's almost effectively taking that card out of your hand as well.
And he does use the Mana Leak. I guess he thought that having the ability to Path to Exile any size of threat and being able to save that mana was incredibly important.
But that's kind of interesting, because if the Obstinate Baloth does hit the table, that 4 life gain is going to be pretty huge.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's gigantic here.
Yeah, see, and the tides have turned here, right? Now all of a sudden Kibler just says go. He's not attacking. We're on a different plan.
Yeah, and I mean, I said he doesn't want to just say go. You don't want to play defense with a 3-1 creature. You know, I mean, you're just asking for something to go wrong. I'm not saying it's the incorrect play.
It's just you know that Kibler's not comfortable at this moment, just going to, okay, he knows he's on a bit of an edge here now. Yuuya he's got some options here. He can Maelstrom Pulse it.
Yep.
Just get it out of the way and attack.
I kind of like that play, actually.
I mean, keeping the pressure on. Kibler's at 13 right now. Kibler also has 4 mana sitting open. And, you know, with Kibler's deck, he can cast all types of stuff. He does go for the Maelstrom Pulse here, though. It resolves.
Now, if Kibler had another Vendilion click right now, that's actually kind of bad for Yuuya, as it would strip away the Obstinate Baloth, and it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, now, Restoration Angel would be particularly horrible here.
Oh, yeah, if he had it in
Yuuya.
response to the path.
That resolves. So are you targeting me or you?
I think you've got to get that Obstinate Baloth out of the way.
I think so, too. It's just going to be very tough to deal with. You know, he can't threads it. It's a 4/4. Like, it's actually just huge.
Right. Like, that is the downside of casting Pulse there, is that you can't cast multiple threats that turn.
Truth.
Oh, so he's targeting himself,
Okay, now
actually,
that makes a
getting rid
lot of sense,
Dismember.
too, right? Because he realizes that being at 13 life, he's kind of up against it, and that card isn't going to be one he's going to be able to do much with.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what I mean? It's a tough one, because he is still at 13. This is, I think we're back into Magic is hard territory here, to be honest.
I think so. I mean, like getting rid of a threat that you know can neutralize one of your opponent's threats in a matchup as dependent on resource advantage as this one, it just seems like you're asking to deplete yourself. You know, the threads of disloyalty, you can't be confident it's going to do anything. I get
Did you say confident?
You can't be confident against the Confidant. And maybe your plan is, okay, he's going to cast Confidant, I'm going to threads it, and that is.
Yes, and now Kibler's sitting on path, sorry, he used a path. He's got a Cryptic Command that he just drew. And I think he's pretty content here to just sit back and try to get some value out of that.
You're certainly real excited if you can Cryptic Command an Obstinate Baloth right now.
That would be fantastic.
All secret.
And you're really excited if your opponent just casts Dark Confidant. I think that's probably the best possible thing for you.
And there's a Tarmogoyf as well. That also can get threads. Now, I don't believe that Yuuya knows about the threads in his hand.
He doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, and that's what a lot of the drama of this is. I mean, it could be Kibler just orchestrating this situation masterfully, but, I mean, the situation much, much, much worse for him if he does not draw that Cryptic Command.
That's right. And now all of a sudden it looks pretty sweet. He gets a counter draw. And does Yuuya follow up with a Bob? He does indeed. And now, do you think Kibler just slams? I mean, depending on what he draws, he's drawn a Mutavault here, which he's going to play, and he's just going to insta-threads
you just
Bob.
snap threads it. You can Snapcaster Mage into Path to Exile if you start to get too low a life total. You can always block with it.
Yeah.
Is that a Maelstrom
It's a Maelstrom Pulse. Now, that's the second one, and he's going to use it on the Threads of Disloyalty to say, you know what, I like to keep
Yeah, that's exactly what Yuuya needed right there. And now this Tarmogoyf going to be, you know, pretty big problem. Kibler can deal with both the Confidant and the Tarmogoyf with Snapcaster Mage into Path if Yuuya attacks with both creatures. I highly suspect he's going to just sit on that Dark Confidant and begin to draw cards.
This is exactly what you were talking about. You know, Kibler was fortunate enough to pick up that Cryptic Command, but Yuuya was also fortunate enough to pick up the second Maelstrom Pulse, which was able to take out the threads, and all of a sudden Yuuya's in the driver's seat as far as the grind goes here.
Now, do you main phase Snapcaster, path away the Tarmogoyf, and start attacking? I feel like, given your opponent's at 18 is going to be drawing 2 cards to your 1, you really want to pressure his life total so that at least there's a finite number of cards he can draw off that Dark Confidant.
Okay, yeah, start limiting that.
You like his 18?
Now, he does have a Colonnade. He cannot activate it yet, however. I do believe he's got a land in hand that will allow him to do that next turn.
Yeah, I think you just go Snapcaster Mage path, attack with, oh, well.
He's not going to be attacking. Oh, he's going to path the Bob. He's just going to say, stop this. But now he's got to deal with the Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
So is the play here that just, I'm not sure exactly how big Goyf is. I know that there's a threads in the yard, so that's going to make it probably a 5/6 is what I'm assuming. If that's the case, he can double block with the Snapcaster Mage and the Celestial Colonnade next turn.
Yeah, I mean, right now you just don't have a plan to survive the Tarmogoyf.
Well, is that the plan, to activate Colonnade and block? Or is that too risky?
Maybe you can. I mean, yeah, certainly.
That'll
like,
do
that's
6
okay.
damage, and I believe that the Tarmogoyf is a 5/6.
8. Hey, you don't really want to lose that I mean, yeah, it certainly deals with the Tarmogoyf. I mean, you lose both your creatures.
You do. You lose your land and your creature, yeah.
You're asking to just get the biggest blowout in the history of the universe.
It's true.
If
Now, if he
your
can get
opponent has
that
anything.
Yeah, if he gets the Mutavault in there, then maybe he can help prevent that. But I mean, it's a risky line for sure. But he's got to do something about that. Tarmogoyf, you know, starting a chump block is not going to get it done. He's drawn a spell snare. Probably not going to be super relevant. I guess it does prevent that blowout that we just mentioned if it's coming from a Terminate.
All right, are we just going to see an attack with Colonnade right now? All right, so it takes him down to,
for 6.
12. And
Wow.
then he can chump block with Mutavault, so he goes 6, 12, 18. Yeah, he's got
yeah,
Colonnade
he does have
untapped.
the Colonnade. But you don't here, right? You just go to 3?
Yeah, right. You just go to 3. You know your opponent probably doesn't have Lightning Bolt in, so that's
Right.
less risky than it could be.
Kitchen
Still,
Finks.
certainly living dangerously.
It is indeed, and that changes the race math significantly. And a Tectonic Edge, not going to hit anything relevant here. I don't see any manlands over there for Yuuya.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Kibler's play makes sense. You know, 6 damage is a lot of damage with Snapcaster plus Colonnade, but even then, that's 3 turns of attacks. You don't have that many chump blockers, and you know, your opponent can just draw anything. You know, Spell Snare only neutralizes a very select number of threats. Is that a devastating Bloodbraid Elf?
Oh, he just took a Bloodbraid Elf? Yeah, that is going to
Watanabe.
do some serious work here.
Watanabe figuring out what the best way to cast it is, but yeah, just giant
Cascade
threat right now. Can't get Treetop Village. Can't get better.
Just a little pump fake there, but that's not how that works. And it's a Thoughtseize. He has to decide if he wants to cast it. You have to question if he even does. If it's an instant speed answer to this, he could just do it in response anyway, and he's going to lose the 2 life. He does decide to go ahead and do it anyway.
Yeah, I kind of hate casting Thoughtseize.
I don't like
there.
it at all.
Yeah, I mean, because like 12 is very significant given your opponent's dealing damage in increments of 4.
Right.
You know, and potentially increments of 6.
Yeah,
so
just anything that he had would be instant speed. Although, yeah,
I mean, he could cast any card in his deck that he would realistically have in his hand in response to the Thoughtseize if he wants to.
Right. All right, so we're going to see a Eat Your Bloodbraid Elf. Yuuya moves it up just to signify the block, and then a trade that it's not even really a trade, but kind of a sad trade for Kibler as the Kitchen Finks is going to come back and again change that race math. So he is back up to 14 now.
Right.
So Kibler needs, I mean, Cryptic Command would get things kicked off nicely.
Yeah, I mean, Kibler definitely drawing live here. Snapcaster Mage would be very, very good as well. Snapcaster Mage actually just win the game from this position.
Snapcaster Mage would be insane, right? Path the Tarmogoyf and block the Kitchen Finks and just take over with that Celestial Colonnade.
Right.
That is not what he drew, however. I believe he's drawn a land.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you can't really do a whole lot if you're Yuuya here other than just attack with your team and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, and we're at the point now where Kibler is going to have to chump block with the Colonnade.
Yeah, I mean, I
he's going
guess
to go to 1 doing that.
You probably don't attack with Kitchen Finks here, just because, like, if he does have something, you just eat it. But, well, I guess he does. He takes him to 1, so that way, if he draws something, you can get him with the Kitchen Finks.
Right.
Kind of a judgment call that last play.
We hear Kibler say, ugh, as he shows him a dismember that he actually just can't cast in a way. And Yuuya Watanabe equalizes there, grinding him out. There were some interesting lines of play there. Very, very tough to tell what the correct thing is. I mean, you'd need a time-traveling supercomputer to grind that thing out to find what the perfect plays were. But
I just think I need a time-traveling supercomputer.
Yeah, well, I don't have
do a lot
one.
with that. Oh,
I'd be a lot better at Magic if I had one.
I mean, and we're all sitting here talking about plays, but it's important to remember, like, if you're playing one of these decks, you really have a vision in your head of how the game works, like how you want a game to play out, what your vision of the end game is. And without access to that from the outside, you know, Magic is a game where people say, you know, there's only one correct play in any given situation. I don't know how true that is in a format where you have so many different options is modern and so many different ways you can sculpt the game and so many different plans that you can enact. sometimes it's a matter of preference.
I think that it does come down to preference sometimes. I mean, if we did have the time traveling supercomputer, we could get exact numbers on every iteration possible over every possible combination of everything. But we don't have that. And so this notion that you can find this perfect play doesn't really exist. Like it might be there, but you will never know if you actually got it. So I think what's best is to do things that have worked for you, to do things based on your studies, based on your knowledge, based on your experience of the game, and based on how you play Magic.
Right, and like sometimes, your opponent's just going to tectonic edge either your Steam Vince or your Temple Garden. You have no idea, can't play around it, you just have to see what happens.
Ultra Pro is the leading manufacturer of trading card game sleeves and deck boxes. If you're looking for official Magic 2013 portfolios, card storage boxes, deck boxes, sleeves, and playmats, Ultra Pro has you covered. For more information, visit wizards.com/magicmerchandise. Did Rich Hagan write that one? Has you covered?
I was just about to bring that up. I can't decide what's worse, that the fact that there's a pun there or the fact that I haven't realized that for all the time we've been sitting here in the booth. So players making some last-minute sideboard adjustments, just kind of seeing, okay, Yuuya subbing out one Obstinate Baloth.
How many does he have?
He's got 2 total.
Okay.
And that's the thing, like one of the things that happens when you're writing strategy articles or you're playing a lot of Magic is people want sideboard guides to see sort of what the plan is in every matchup. But at this level, a lot of the time, players just sort of say, okay, I want the option to do this. I want certain draws where this happens.
Right.
So you'll see things like one of the 2 Obstinate Ballots come in.
Right.
You just don't know exactly what kind of environment you're going to be playing in when the tournament actually starts.
I think that sideboard guides are very useful for people that aren't used to the decks and are trying to get up to speed in a really quick fashion. But for this level of play, they're probably completely useless. Like the level, there's something we call leveling, where it's the I know that you know that I know the thing that's going on here, and the players are the ones down here based on what they've just seen versus based on what they know about the other players, that they have to use those factors to make the decision. And it's just not going to be something that would be, logically intuitive. A lot of it's going to be based on, well, he brought these in and I don't want to be weak to those, so I'm going to bring these in. And then the other guy thinking, well, what if he brought those other things in? I should probably adjust. And then they clash these decks together and see who is more right.
Well, and and like you sit and read your sideboarding guide and it says like blue-white against Jund. Okay, I do this thing. But then like, what if you just lose one of your matches to Olivia Voldaren?
Right.
Or Batterskull. You haven't play tested against that card. No one else has that card. Are you supposed to just not react to that?
Exactly. The sideboard guide says that you don't do anything, so I won't do anything. And meanwhile, Olivia just runs you over.
Right. So I mean, a lot of this is just a matter of taste, a matter of preference, a matter of feel, and at the end of the day, kind of, just a matter of variance. It's like, oh, I want to have the option to draw hands that contain this card.
And this is a huge match. They are 1-1, and they're both 2 of the players who are sitting on 18 points, the 6 and 5s, and there's a big group of them, and these guys definitely both want to be one of them to emerge and put themselves in a prime position to make the top 4 of the Players' Championship here in Seattle.
Yep, huge game of Magic right here.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very intense.
As intense as Kibler's hand shuffling.
Yeah, we get a look at Kibler. I'm taking a look at Kibler's hand right now, and it looks pretty good. I see a path to exile, which is really, something that he wants to have in his opener for sure.
Yeah, you've got a path, you've got a spell snare, you've got a Snapcaster Mage, so you have early defense, you have ways of getting ahead, you have ways of removing your opponent's problematic threats. Seems like a pretty capable hand. Yuuya also has a rock-solid hand. It's got lands and spells, has some 4-drops that he can really capitalize on if the game goes that long, which it looks like it will. So in a match this important, it's always nice to be able to see at least a game of Magic being played. And no one mulliganing down to 5, no one getting mana hosed right out of the game. So Yuuya draws Raging Ravine, decides to play it. Right now the players just kind of playing lands and looking at each other, setting up, jockeying for position.
I think that's just reflective of what we were mentioning earlier, Zach, that these 2 decks are actually kind of similar in that way. And right now, neither of them wants to be the first one to make a move, although you know, once we get up into the 3 and 4 mana range, that will change quickly.
Right.
Another Path to Exile.
Go.
Yep. And a Tectonic Edge threatening to blow up that Raging Ravine once he gets enough lands.
I see a mana leak and a remand, or excuse me, I think just a remand for Kibler.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's
And
exactly what that card is. I feel like if you're Yuuya, you kind of want to just play Thoughtseize right here. You don't really have a lot of information. You don't have a lot to work with. I think you want to know what your opponent's plan's going to be.
Does he have a black source? He does, a black leaf.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, sort of awkward for him in the initial turns, playing Treetop Village into Raging Ravine. Kind of makes it hard to cast. Well, he has Twilight Mire, but ordinarily would make it hard to cast Liliana on the third turn. But doesn't have that problem right now. Deep in the tank, trying to get the read on whether Kibler has one of the remands or mana leaks. Getting a Liliana on an empty board, obviously hugely advantageous.
Although, pretty interesting spot, because even if he does, it could just be a Vendilion click.
It's true.
You know, and that could come in, hit Liliana down to 1.
Yeah, all of these are good points. I think you just play Black Cleave Cliffs and cast Thoughtseize right here.
I like that play. That is what I would do, I believe. It just feels a little bit unnecessarily risky to just start running stuff out there.
You know what? I actually think you might not play Black Cleave Cliffs. I think you might even go Twilight Mire.
Really?
Float black with your Treetop Village.
Wow, he just says go.
Oh, wow. I was going to say, because that would let you cast Terminate if he clicks, but looks like he doesn't want to do that yet. He just wants to force something through later with Thoughtseize. Plays Cliffs because it's his third land.
Kibler just missed a land drop.
Oh, that is huge.
That is going to be very huge. All right, Thoughtseize you.
And Yuuya can confidently play the 4th land now. Kibler doesn't want to use Tectonic Edge because he'd be, you know, strip mining himself.
So does Kibler remanding this doesn't do much, right? Because he just recasts it, and now that card that he wanted to get from the remand is gone.
On the other hand, if he remands it, Yuuya can't cast a 3-mana spell if he casts Thoughtseize again.
And plus, Kibler's actually drawing for lands.
Yes.
So, and he can't that can't be taken away with the Thoughtseize.
That's a really good point.
Wow. All right. So Liliana of the Veil does not meet with a Spell Pierce, and all of a sudden it's just sitting on the table and we're discarding.
Yeah, you've got to be really excited to be ticking Liliana up right here. You know, your opponent missed a land drop. That means he's got all spells in his hand.
Right.
So every time you activate it, if you're trading lands for spells, you're going to win the game pretty quickly.
Kibler has drawn 2 lands since then, by the way. One off the remand and one on his draw step.
Sure.
And he plays one and just says go.
Now, with the Plains Tech Edge, Hallowed Fountain, mana base, Kibler cannot cast Cryptic Command even if he has it. So Yuuya knows he has plenty of room right here to kind of do whatever he wants.
Yep.
He drew another Thoughtseize too, so nothing really tricky is going to be happening from Kibler's side of the board.
Thoughtseize. Show me. Kibler discarded a Path to Exile to the Liliana activation. He's got multiple, I think he has 2 more in his hand, so he just felt like it was redundant. It's also a Snapcaster target later.
Is Kibler thinking right here? Does he want to cast Snapcaster Mage, maybe targeting Remand? Not really a whole lot else he can do. He wants to resolve that Baneslayer Angel, but not against a Liliana with 4 counters.
Right.
Cast Snapcaster Mage targeting Remand in response.
And I think he's just going to say okay, right? Oh, he is going to do it, because this is a pretty easy recast for Yuuya.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Maybe he just wants more cards. If he gets another threat, at least that means he can protect his Baneslayer. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, the thing is, the Thoughtseize is going to take Snapcaster Mage if he doesn't cast it, given his hand.
Right.
So at least this is a way to get a 2-1 threat on the table while cycling a card.
So right now, still in the main phase, he's going to edict his opponent, and he's just going to slam this Obstinate Bailiff and say, look, I'm going to make something big. Go. Now, but does this give Kibler the opportunity to actually play the Baneslayer, knowing that Watanabe could easily have a Terminate or a Bloodbraid Elf into a Terminate, or just uses Liliana to kill it? He doesn't really have that. He just can't play it here,
I don't think you can cast Baneslayer here.
Right, so he's got to come up with a different plan. Getting rid of that Obstinate Bailiff seems like part of it with a Path to Exile, but it's just not a very awesome turn for him.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to. Did he have Vendilion click in his hand?
I don't think so. I think he's got a Spell Snare.
Oh, it's Spell Snare. Okay, yeah, you just don't have a...
Actually, I might have just seen a Vendilion Click.
Yeah, he does have Vendilion Click.
Okay, yeah.
I think you've got to set up Vendilion Click, take a removal spell, get rid of Liliana, and slam the Baneslayer down once you can protect it.
And he still has Path along with that plan as well.
Right. Remanding the Thoughtseize turns out to be huge there. Yuuya casting Obstinate Baloth instead makes sense, but you have to wonder if someone's going to go to all that trouble to remand your Thoughtseize, maybe you should just cast your Thoughtseize.
Yeah. All right. Update from the back table. Shota Yasuoka wins 2-1 over Junya Yanaga. He is just wrecked this field. He is a mortal lock for the top 4, not even close.
I think going 11-1 against a field this strong may be the most impressive feat we've seen in tournament.
That has to be one of the most impressive things that's ever been done in Magic, honestly. Like, this field is ridiculous.
Right.
And this guy just 11-1 the field, and it was a mixed format.
Right.
M13 draft, cube draft, and constructed in the form of modern. All right, so we do see the Vendilion Click here in response to the Thoughtseize.
Right, yeah, because again, Thoughtseize is very likely to take Click here.
Yep. And what are we targeting?
Does Kibler want to target himself and protect his Baneslayer, maybe shuffle it into his deck, draw it again, or?
That's a very long-term plan.
Yeah, it is a super long-term plan.
He does have a fetch land, so it wouldn't stay on the bottom of his library for long.
Me.
He does say me, and he's just going to get rid of the spell snare. It's kind of redundant, but you know what he draws here is like all going to be open up to the Thoughtseize. Looks like Path, Baneslayer, and 2 lands. So Baneslayer goes away. I mean, I don't know. Like, he has a lot of answers to it in the form of, or at least he has one answer to it in the form of Terminate.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just think you take Baneslayer because I don't think you care about very much else. Like, yeah,
the paths don't matter.
Yeah, the paths are gonna get rid of your Baloth, sure, but like they're not gonna threaten your Liliana. I mean, maybe you Edict here. I think you just terminate his Vendilion Click, just start ticking up Liliana. I mean, you have to respect the Celestial Colonnade, which is hugely important, but like that's really one of his only threats. You can get rid of the, like, if he uses a path to get rid of your Baloth, if you tick up Liliana, you get rid of either Path to Exile, which is worth one of your threats, or Celestial Colonnade.
Well, he's also got a Scalding Tarn in hand, too. But
oh, I did not see that. Is that... Where is the Scalding Tarn in his hand?
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I missed it.
Oh, no, I think you're right. I just think it's not on our screen.
So do you see the Colonnade? I think it's sitting next to the Colonnade.
Oh, okay.
So we'll wait, because that is really important if that is not the case.
Okay, well, in that case, disregard everything I said.
All right.
He does take Path to
That's
Exile.
easy, Ryan Kibler. And there's a Scalding Tarn. All right. But still, I think along with what you're saying is true, is that if Liliana is ticking up, he can't keep spells and land in his hand, and that's going to make the Celestial Colonnade activation get further and further away. If he has to keep pitching actual spells to Liliana, he moves a lot of pressure onto that Colonnade, and if it gets terminated or killed some way, that's going to be tough to come back. All right, Thoughtseize number 2.
All right, and then, yeah,
his hand is just getting
really tricky,
decimated here.
Maybe he just takes the other path. Ask Kibler, okay, respond to it if you want to. If not, how on earth do you plan on dealing with my Obstinate Baloth? Yeah, that's exactly what Kibler realizes.
Yeah, he's just like, well, I got to kill that thing some way. And the Baneslayer Angel hits the bin, making Kibler very sad, leaving him with 2 cards in hand. One of them a Colonnade, and another one a Scalding Tarn.
And it makes sense to take the first Path to Exile, with the first Thoughtseize. That way you don't give Kibler, you force him to use the second path in response to your Thoughtseize, or risk losing out on that option altogether.
Yeah, wow. Very masterfully played there by Yuuya. He sculpted that situation pretty nicely, and he's looking to be in very good position. He's still holding the Terminate.
Now, it's interesting here because Terminate is the only way you can deal with that Celestial Colonnade that you know about. If you use Terminate on Vendilion Click, start ticking up Liliana, Kibler can discard the Tarn, play a Celestial Colonnade. You don't have a really good answer to that.
That's true. Yeah. Attack for 3. Kibler says, yeah, and goes down to 15. And yeah, so even though Yuuya probably would have been loving it if he could be ticking up Liliana, that wasn't an option here, and he's got a completely clear board now.
All right, now Kibler looks like he drew Snapcaster Mage.
I do believe so. Which
unfortunately does not have 3 power to take out Yuuya's pair of treetop villages.
Right. Are we just going to see both of those guys bash in? It depends on what Yuuya has in hand.
Oh, so it's
Yeah,
19.
You don't go up from those. Not that good.
Sacrifice this, gain a life, go get a land.
Not weak.
And he's got a swamp.
I mean, yeah, I think we're going to see both of those villages get into the red zone. Yuuya getting a swamp, playing it untapped because he needs mana to activate both treetop villages and keep Terminate up for the Celestial Colonnade. So that I think is exactly what we're going to see right now. Yeah, and Yuuya attacks for 6.
Bash for 6. This is a 3-turn clock as the board sits. Kibler sitting on 15. He will presumably drop down to 9 here. He can, however, Snapcaster Path to get rid of one of them.
I think
if that's the play. I mean, if Yuuya is not presenting any other threats and it's clear that he's just going to be activating these villages and attacking every turn, don't you just have to path one of them?
Yeah, maybe. I don't mind just tech edging it, but yeah, I mean, you're going to have to cast Path at some point anyway. And
I mean, he can do both, right?
Oh yeah, he certainly can.
So does he?
Like, the thing is...
well, that'll drop him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if he plays that last land in his hand, he can still activate Colonnade.
Well, right. The problem with using Tech Edge on Treetop Villages is you're not using Tech Edge on Raging Ravine.
Oh, I see. Raging Ravine is looming as well, where the Snapcaster Mage plus, like, maybe another one, or maybe even just a Restoration Angel can eventually hop in front of that Treetop Village. Not so with the
Raging Ravine. Exactly. I think Kibler says, okay, I can't manage 6 damage a turn. I can manage 3 damage a turn, so we'll have to sit and work with that. Kibler Scalding Tarn, Threads of Disloyalty in hand. Threads very good in this matchup, very bad in this particular situation.
Absolutely. Yuuya drops down to 17 life. He's still at a very comfortable life total, and he's still got a draw step here.
Playing that Scalding Tarn a little bit generous against Liliana and +1, but doesn't matter as Inquisition of Kozilek takes the threads. Yuuya working with perfect information now, knows exactly what to do. Knows he doesn't have to worry about getting blocked by Restoration Angel.
That's got to be a big relief, right? Sitting when he finally empties out Kibler's hand and he can just do. It's just a puzzle now. He's just got to figure out what's going to happen. So he does attack.
Attacks with Treetop Village, not Raging Ravine, because he wants to have access to Terminate in case, of course.
So he's got to tap it here, right? If he wants to use the. So this is a tough spot because, yeah, Kibler knows that Raging Ravine is looming over there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we'll sack. Yeah.
All right, so clarification about the amount of mana you need to activate Celestial Colonnade. Rather take a damage from the sack land than not be able to use his Tectonic Edge.
One card.
Right. So Kibler's at 11. He can certainly take this 3 here, and I think, given the fact that Raging Ravine will kill him in pretty short order if he lets it live too long, he probably just needs to take it again here.
Yeah, I think you just have to take Treetop Village and blow up the Raging Ravine. The Treetop Village you can manage. There's quite a bit of cards you can draw. Oh, well, no, I guess not.
He says, I want to take nothing right now. That puts some pressure on him to get in a little sloppy here, but Yuuya's not going to let that slide. That thing's dead.
I don't like blowing up Village there. Like, Restoration Angel is one of your best outs, and now... I guess Restoration Angel is still an out to the Raging Ravine because you can flicker your Snapcaster Mage and get your other path to exile.
Okay.
It makes you burn that, but I mean, that is true. You save yourself 3 points of life that way.
Go.
You also rely upon your Snapcaster Mage remaining in play, but that's probably going to happen because if your opponent had removal, you'd hit the Restoration Angel.
Yuuya plays an Inquisition of Kozilek, which doesn't have any meaningful effect other than letting him see that Kibler has nothing.
7.
Kibler drops a 7 off of 4 from the Raging Ravine. Yuuya plays a land and says, go.
13.
Is that a Mutavault that Kibler just drew?
It is. Well, the Raging Ravine doesn't have trample, right?
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
So, I mean, there are chump blocks to be had, and Kibler certainly has outs.
This, to me, just highlights the value of the creature lens. We've seen so many games of Modern devolve into high-impact slugfest, but sometimes you just don't have that. All your removal trades with all their threats.
Yeah.
You're left with your lands.
And that's exactly what we see here, and as it turns out, Yuuya's the last standing man land here is the Raging Ravine, and it's doing a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, it's about to drop Kibler down to 2 or take care of a Mutavault.
Right.
Either of those outcomes is something you're not very upset with here as Yuuya Watanabe.
Right. He also traded a couple of his lands for either other lands of Kibler's or actual removal spells in the form of, getting Treetop Village path.
Right, yeah, you can't ever be sad when someone has to use one of their best cards on a land.
Right.
Yuuya.
Treetop Village functioning highly for Yuuya.
All right, so he's going to crack a sack land immediately.
Yeah, what is he doing? Just thinning out here?
It's hard for me to decide.
Yeah. He is at 12 now. He was at 13 before.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why you want to get a land here.
That you were, wait, hold on. I had you 13. You're sacking. That put you at 12, right? Or did I miss a sack land somewhere?
Yeah,
7, 12 is what?
yeah, 12 after the life of that sack. Yeah.
You have yourself at going to 12. Yeah, okay. I thought you said 11. Okay. That's why I was trying to confirm.
Yeah, so they were verbalizing life totals, and as it turns out, they were on the same page, so it all worked.
So
right. Okay.
Did he do it twice?
Yeah.
So this is a trick that is maybe not so well known.
Counters. So he's a 6/6.
Yes, he's a 6. So
Okay,
Raging Ravine,
making
if you
sure here.
activate him
I'll
and
go
then
to
you
1.
activate him again, he will actually pick up 2 counters on the trigger because
Right.
both of them will trigger separately.
Right. It says whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it.
And you're
when you
at
activate it again, it gets a second
9?
instance
Go.
of that. So counterintuitively, gets 2
Correct.
counters on the attack. Not sure that was the design intent of the card,
No.
but that's what the card does
And
under the
thankfully,
Magic rules.
that doesn't come up super often because you do need so much mana to do it.
Right, especially in a format like Modern. When you could, in order to do that, you have to kind of be able to hard cast Gristlebrand.
Yes.
So-
So I guess you earned your extra 1 counter.
Right.
All right, so he's going to activate his manland and attack. It's going to get chump blocked. There's a Maelstrom Pulse for the Snapcaster Mage, which is actually really important because that play that we mentioned earlier is no longer live.
Right. Yeah. Getting Snapcaster Mage out, it's an innocuous 2/1, but
he just drew a miserable card with the
Seachrome
Spell
Coast,
Snare.
the actual worst
No,
card.
Spell Snare is what he has in
Spell
his
Snare?
hand.
Oh, that's, yeah. Not real good at this stage of the game.
No. He does, however, have a chump block.
Yep.
So activate this block. And that Raging Ravine, jeez.
Oh, yeah, can't even cast the Spell Snare.
But he could Threads of Disloyal to it, and he gets 2 Spell Snares. And that's the game.
What an epic match.
Wow. You know, it's funny because we got a chance to see this matchup a lot, this this blue-white deck versus the Jund deck, but it's a great matchup
It's a really
for us.
great, it's great Magic. It's 5 different colors,
I need
2 similar strategies with very different cards.
Hey, welcome back to the booth. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. This is Zach Hill. You know, we heard Mark Rosewater earlier talking about the color pie and how it's, central to what Magic is. We had the whole color pie represented there between those 2 decks.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of sort of the things that are essential to the colors. We see discard out of black, burn out of red, huge creatures out of green, flyers out of blue and white, of course, counter magic, white removal, but it's trading in a way that's kind of uniquely white.
That's fair.
Yeah, you're right. Very balanced.
Just.
And of course, angels, in case you need to be any more typical of the colors. So, I mean, really, this kind of embodies what Magic is all about right here.
Right, and I think that that's really cool. And, looking now to the standings, Kibler is going to he lost that last round, so Yuuya Watanabe is putting himself in a position of top 4. Now, I don't know how all the math works out. I have to look at a whole bunch of things, and we're going to let Rich and the guys dissect that for you. But I have to think that Yuuya's put himself in a position to at least be in tiebreaker form to make it to the top 4. I think that Shota's maybe the only one that I know for sure that's in. I think John Finkel was in a good position, too, as he was 1 step above.
Right.
We're going to find out right now. So why don't we send it back down to the booth for Rich, and he's going to break all these things down for you to the studio.
There's a Magic card called Quiet Speculation. Here, you'll get no speculation.
Right.
So the deal is this. You can go away and do your maths, feel free. We'll remind you that tiebreaks are really complicated here, that first of all, it's about head-to-head record. So if they're on the same record, 7 and 5, in this case, there's a whole bunch of people there. If they've all played everyone on that record, in this case, I think it's 4 people.
Correct.
Then it's about head-to-head. Not sure that will have happened, we'll see. But then it comes down to pro points from the last year. Scott Larrabee, our tournament organizer and tournament manager here at the Pro Tour, is doing that. The top four will be unveiled. I have a screen in front of me. When that becomes official, we will bring it to you, and then we will have an end-of-day wrap. Until that point, nothing is certain, and we wait for that definitive outcome. So, with all that said, Sheldon, 2 days, kinda good.
Awesome Magic. I mean, 12 rounds of ridiculously good Magic from 16 of the best players in the world. Simply put, across 3 formats, 2 different kinds of drafts, constructed. If you wanted to see Magic played at the elite level, all you had to do was tune in and watch us.
If you want to know who the top 4 are, all you have to do is tune in and watch us, because Scott Larrabee has blizzarded his way through the wonders of the interwebs. Your number 1 seed for the inaugural Player Championship Showdown tomorrow is Showtime, Shota Yasuoka, at 11-1. Your number 2 seed from Japan, Yuuya Watanabe, at 7-5. Your number 3 seed from Brazil, Paula Vita Dama de Rosa, 7-5. Brace for impact. Your number 4 seed for the inaugural Player Championship Showdown tomorrow afternoon, John Finkel.
That guy can play some Magic.
Yasuoka, Watanabe, Dama de Rosa, Finkel. They're coming back tomorrow to play for a $40,000 first prize and a big old slice of Magic immortality. Don't go away. Sheldon Menery and I will be right back with our end-of-day wrap. Hello everyone, welcome to the Tournament Centre here at the inaugural Players' Championship for Magic the Gathering. Rich Hagan, Sheldon Menery with you to take us through 2 terrific days. Sheldon, 16 of the best, that's how we sort of couched it to people. And sometimes that's a tough gig to live up to, but boy did they ever.
Yeah, we weren't disappointed. We saw elite level Magic played for 12 rounds over these 2 days, and we also got the look into them drafting. You know, drafting is something, well, that's not playing Magic. It certainly is, because there's a huge, deep skill set that goes into that, especially in the 2 formats that we had.
All right, so let's take you back to first thing yesterday morning. 16 players came in. They came into 2 draft pods of Cube. That was the format, all Magic's greatest hits. Let's take a look on the board, see what pod 1 looked at. There you've got the end of day 1 master scoreboard. So they played 3 rounds of Cube, and then they played 3 rounds of Modern. This was the halfway point, Sheldon. What catches your eye from the back end of yesterday?
Well, certainly Reed Duke stumbling to 1-5 was a surprise to all of us. Sure. Now, when we're talking about the 16 best Magic players in the world competing against each other, somebody's going to finish down here at the bottom.
Yep.
Because Suchinquo, Reed Duke were 1-5 at the end of the day, doesn't mean that they were bad. It's just like, this is very, very serious competition. You've got Hall of Famers, you've got Players of the Year, you've got Pro Tour champions. This is a really, really tough field.
Yeah, it's just crazy. You only need to look at sort of a 4-pack over here of Yuuya Watanabe, former Player of the Year, Estrati, Pro Tour champion last year, Josh Utter-Layton, 3 Pro Tours in the last top 8s in the last 2 years, Paula Vida Dama de Rosa, 9 Pro Tour top 8s. All of those, between them, only barely 1 average record. Startling. Just that is absolutely
it does.
The story.
It shows how difficult this field was. And you know, we talked to some of the players early on, most especially about their constructed deck choice. And the question was, is who you're going to play impact your choice? Mm-hmm. And the answer was 100% of the time, yes, it does. I'm playing against the best players, means my margins are much, much thinner. Nobody's punting any matches my way at the Magic Players Championship.
Yeah. There were some other interesting sort of dynamics to that. We had Martin User in last night, and he was saying, I feel very good about our Modern deck. It has a bad matchup in Modern against White Weenie. Mm-hmm. He went, I would never play the deck I'm playing, maybe in a Pro Tour, against the field, because I would expect 50 PTQ winners to come along with White Weenie or Red Weenie or whatever. And he said, here, the chances, what are the chances of Paolo Vida Dama de Rosa turning up with White Weenie? It's nil. So they just struck it from the record books. They just said, there is no way we face this unlosable matchup. Of course, they're an unwinnable matchup, and they're entirely right. Nowhere to be seen.
And that's why Su Ching Kuo said that he did play his robots deck.
Okay.
Because he said, again, the play skill is so close from top to bottom of this field that I'm just going to try to give myself the opportunity to just get there. You know, the deck is sometimes just going to win, and I'm not going to have to worry about trying to outplay a Paolo or a John Finkel or a Shuhei Nakamura.
Talking of a Paolo, he came in and had a chat with you earlier today.
He did.
He started 0-3 in Cube.
He'd had a pretty bad run. He was happy with his draft in the Cube, but he ended up 0-3. So he stumbled out of the gate. But like the great thoroughbred that he is, he hit his stride in the middle of the tournament, and as we see, has crossed the finish line in the space to get to tomorrow.
Yeah, we said very much this came in 4 acts: 3 rounds of Cube, 3 rounds of Modern. That took you to this slide, the end of day 1. But then we get into day 2. We have 3 rounds of M13 draft, and given that everyone knew everyone else's Modern deck, everyone knew where they were positioned there, it felt like M13 was going to be a really big deal in separating people. Now, that kind of happened, but it only happened for one person. And of all the people, you would not have expected it to be.
Yeah, Shota Yasuoka is maybe the best constructed player in the world, or maybe the greatest deck builder in the world right now. His limited showings at some Pro Tours and at events at GPs has been less than a champion of his caliber would like it to be. So what did he do? He went home. He studied his craft. He went and practiced drafting, said, I'm going to be an elite drafter as well. And we watched him. We were fortunate enough to have him in the hero seat.
Yeah.
And we watched him craft a beautiful draft deck in the M13 draft.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie, that was entirely intentional. Obviously, we choose who we're going to cover. And when we were talking about it, we said, look, this is a guy, he has this great constructive reputation, which everyone knows about. But yes, he had a limited top 8 last weekend at Boston. But, people get sniffy about one results. People get sniffy about one Pro Tour win. They say, it's just one Pro Tour win. So one swallow doesn't make the summer. Yeah. We understand that. And we said, all right, here he is. He got to day 2. He's in business. He leads the field. Let's show people whether he is the real deal. 3-0, thank you so much. 8-1. And at that point, in a traditional tournament, we'd be starting to think about relaxing with a cup of tea for 3 hours while you scoop assorted people into the notional top 8 with you. But of course, this format was very, very different, and there was stuff on the line all the way.
Right. Every match today and yesterday was worth 1 Pro Tour point, and that's just huge. That's qualification for silver, gold, platinum levels for the Pro Players Club. So there was no relaxing after Shota had gotten to 8-1, and he knew he could lose 3 matches, and he was probably in. There was no slowing down, and the same was true for the players at the bottom of the bracket. Just because Reed Duke was 1-8 or 1-9, he wasn't going to stop playing because every pro point is gold to these guys.
He will come back. Reed Duke will come back to Seattle in 6 weeks' time, whatever it is, for Pro Tour Return to Ravnica. When he sits down in round 1, assuming he doesn't get DQ'd at any point, which is pretty likely.
Pretty unlikely.
He's a pretty safe guy. Reed Duke will get 2 pro points towards his total for this season. He got 2 pro points for this event. He will never earn 2 harder pro points.
No. Again, the field set the bar at an insanely high level. I can't imagine what these guys were processing going in. But the great champions that these 16 guys they were all coming in thinking, I can win this event. Not one of them were thinking, well, I'm Alexander Hayne and I've won only 1 Pro Tour and 1 Rookie of the Year, and that's not really much compared to a 9 Pro Tour top 8s like Paolo. Alex Hayne came here to win. He came thinking to win. And that part of that mindset is what makes these guys great players. It's not just the technical skill, it's the emotional wherewithal, the attitude that makes them winners.
Let us tell you the order of the 16 winners. Starting in 16th place, it is Reed Duke with his 2 pro points. Suchin Kuo, 15. 14, it's David Ochoa, the first of the Fireballers. 13, Josh Utter-Layton. There you see the scoreboard there. Currently, this gives you just a shape. Reed Duke, Suchin Kuo, Ochoa in 14, Utter-Layton 13. In 12th place, Luis Scott Vargas, the top of the 5 and 7s. Then we're at 6 and 6. This is a triumph to go 6 and 6. Just talk through the 6 and 6s, Sheldon.
Owen Turtenwald, of course, last year's Player of the Year. Martin Yuuya, the European champion, as we mentioned, Canadian, Team Canada, young pro Alexander Hayne. You already touched on Junya Yanaga, Samuel Estrade, the first modern Pro Tour champion, and of course we saw Brian Kibler slip to 6 and 6 there by dropping that last match to Yuuya Watanabe.
So that puts Brian Kibler in 6th place. So an even record got you into the top 6. Remember, the top 8, $5,000 US. The top 4, however, poor old Shuhei Nakamura, a 4-way split at 7 and 5. But Shuhei missed out, not on the first tiebreak, which would have been the round everyone head-to-head, but the second tiebreak, pro points in the past season. He had the lowest of the 4, and that gives you the seeding. John Finkel, best of all time, maybe. Paula Vita Dama de Rosa, best of all time, maybe.
Yeah, let's drop the maybe off of John.
All right, yes,
we're going to argue about that.
We'll fight about this later. Yuuya Watanabe, a Player of the Year. And up at the top, Showtime, 11 and 1, having dominated one of the best fields ever assembled. Tomorrow, those 4, Yasuoka, Watanabe, De Rosa, and Finkel will come back for yours and our entertainment. I can't wait. Thank you so much for being with us through the first 2 days of the inaugural Players' Championship. For Sheldon Menery, until we meet again tomorrow, I'm your host, Richard Hagan, saying bye.